The MCAT CARS podcast, session number 16. The CARS section of the MCAT gives thousands of pre-meds nightmares every night. Whether you're an ESL student, lack confidence while reading, or a slow reader like me, Jack Weston and the medical school headquarters are here to help you score higher in every section so you can be confident you're ready to get the MCAT score of your dreams. Welcome to the MCAT CARS podcast. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, your host here every week. And I am joined, as always, with Jack Weston from jackweston.com, the premier MCAT CARS tutor. Here at the MCAT CARS podcast, we break down articles from the internet, from anywhere, and really break down and figure out what the author is saying. It's reading comprehension, but guess what? That's what the MCAT is all about. So hopefully as you go through the articles with us and listen to our breakdowns and the feedback from Jack, we are helping you improve your reading comprehension and your ability to score well on the MCAT. This week we have an interesting article all about what we eat. All right, Jack Weston back for some more MCAT CARS podcasts. Last week, we hopefully scared some criminals into going the straight and narrow. This week, maybe we'll convince some people to go vegan.
Yeah, that's the goal. Well, I don't know if I could do it, but Ryan, if you can give us some pointers, maybe we can.
Yeah, I was vegan for 2 years, but I didn't really sense any difference, so I went back to eating meat. It was good.
Nice. Okay.
All right. So let's go ahead and jump into this one, and we'll check in on the way. Huge reductions in meat eating are essential to avoid dangerous climate change, according to the most comprehensive analysis yet of the food system's impact on the environment. All right, so the author this is interesting. I think as a reader, I would go, oh, the author is saying we need to reduce meat eating, but the author is just stating what this study said, this analysis. So the author is saying, hey, there's this analysis out there, and the analysis is saying we need to reduce meat eating.
Yeah, so at what point do we say it's the author's perspective versus someone else's perspective? And if the author is bringing up someone else's perspective, does that mean that they agree with it? Because why would they bring it up if they don't agree with it, right? We don't know, right?
Yeah.
This is a conversation. We're having a conversation. Maybe the author agrees with it. Maybe they don't. Most likely they will, but we need to keep reading to understand that. So great point.
In Western countries, beef consumption needs to fall by 90% and be replaced by 5 times more beans and pulses. I don't know what pulses are, but I'm assuming that the author is just reiterating the analysis, and it's not the author's perspective here saying that we need to cut meat production. Or consumption.
Oh, we don't know exactly, but it probably is.
Yeah.
You're right. Probably is. Now, I mean, maybe this is the author's point, right? But I would be hesitant to say that because, it doesn't say I believe, or it doesn't bring up. We have to keep reading, but it probably is both. It's probably the author's point, and it's probably the study's point, right? The study's conclusion. Great. So so we need to reduce beef consumption by 90%. Good luck with that, and replace by 5 times more beans and pulses. You said you don't know what pulses are. Who cares, right? It's related to beans probably in some ways.
Yeah.
So you can think of it that way. Great. All right.
Next paragraph. The research also finds that enormous changes to farming are needed to avoid destroying the planet's ability to feed the 10 billion people expected to be on the planet in a few decades. So the author is, again, quoting the research or paraphrasing the research saying, hey, we need to change farming to feed everybody.
Okay, sounds good.
Next paragraph. Food production already causes great damage to the environment via greenhouse gases from livestock, deforestation, and water shortages from farming, and vast ocean dead zones from agricultural pollution. And so the author here is giving examples of what our farming and food production does to our climate and earth.
Right. Should you know exactly what water shortages from farming means, right? I mean, you should try to understand it, but it doesn't make that much of a difference. Vast ocean dead zones, what is that? You may not have, known about this. and you may be thinking, wow, I don't really know, and maybe I'm lost, but you don't need to know unless they explain it to you. So yeah, that's great. So you just know that food causes these issues. It causes deforestation, causes greenhouse gases, water shortages, vast ocean dead zones, whatever that may mean. And yeah, you're good to go.
But without action, its impact will get far worse as the world population rises by 2.3 billion people by 2050 and global income triples, enabling more people to eat meat-rich Western diets. So there's the author is saying here, we need to change our farming and food production, or else as the population grows, as our means of buying meat-rich diets grow, then our world is going to be in trouble.
Okay, yeah, so it just seems like we're going to have issues if in the future if we keep this up, right? Because we have so many more people. I mean, think about it. 2.3 billion more people in like a couple decades. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
This trajectory would smash critical environmental limits beyond which humanity will struggle to live, the new research indicates. So again, quoting research, if we go down this path of more people and more meat-eating diets, then we're going to break through these limits that apparently researchers have put out there.
Okay.
And it'll be bad for us because they'll say humanity will struggle to live.
Yeah, okay.
It is pretty shocking, said Marco Springman of the University of Oxford, who led the research team. So we're introduced to the researcher here who led the team, saying it's pretty shocking, I guess, the trajectory or the struggle to live or whatever it is. We don't know what is pretty shocking at this point.
Right, due to these critical environmental problems, right? Okay.
We are really risking the sustainability of the whole system. So again, he's just reiterating the dilemma that we're facing. If we are interested in people being able to farm and eat, then we better not do that. Okay? I guess eating is important, so we shouldn't do that. Pretty straightforward.
Well, exactly. We shouldn't be doing what we're doing now if we want to farm and eat, right? Yep. So great. Okay.
Next paragraph. Feeding a world population of 10 billion is possible, but only if we change the way we eat and the way we produce food, said Professor Johann Rockström of the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research in Germany, who was part of the research team. All right, so we're introduced to another person who's part of this team, and he's saying that, again, yeah, we can feed these people, but we need to change what we're doing.
Okay.
Greening the food sector or eating up our planet. This is what is on the menu today. So greening the food sector, making it more eco-friendly, or keep destroying our planet. That's our choice. That's what's on the menu.
Yeah, this is a great quote because you may not understand it as soon as you read it, but you kind of already know where this is headed, right? And what Professor Johann was saying to begin with. Professor Johann was saying that we have to change our ways. So maybe this sentence has something to do with changing our ways, right? Greening the food sector, which is essentially changing from going from meat to greens, or eating up our planet. So that potentially means just ruining our planet, or basically eating it up essentially means that you don't have any more. This is what is on our menu today. So you have to choose. You have to choose what's on your menu, whether you're going to make it more green or you're going to eliminate it essentially. Yeah. Okay, great.
The new study follows the publication of a landmark UN report on Monday in which the world's leading scientists warn there are just a dozen years in which to keep global warming under 1.5 degrees Celsius. So again, another study put out here from the UN saying, hey, we only have a dozen years to make sure that we don't heat up our planet too much.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I didn't finish the sentence. Beyond which, even half a degree will significantly worsen the risks of drought, floods, and extreme heat. All right, so painting a picture of what raising the temperature would do. The report said eating less meat and dairy was important, but said current trends were in the opposite direction. So the report again saying we need to eat less meat, eat less dairy, but saying that we're not doing that at all. We're going the other way. We're eating more.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is a great article because the questions will really test your understanding of the arguments and whether or not they have any ground. So for instance, they made a huge connection to how producing meat, right, eating meat and dairy, right, products can ruin the planet. And the MCAT will be all over this. They will ask a million questions about how this stands and how strong this kind of argument is and what would weaken this kind of idea and so forth. So I love the passage because it's so easy to understand, but there are so many assumptions the author is making where the questions will really revolve around how well you understood it, how strong your understanding of it was. So one of the biggest assumptions they're making is that by making or eating meat products or dairy products, we are essentially ruining our environment, right? There is no way we can for sure know whether that's true. They did not make any connection to how eating dairy or meat is really ruining our environment. Other than saying there's droughts and deforestation that's occurring, it's a very weak argument that they will try to challenge in the question. So it's interesting to point out. So what is the big picture here? What do you think you should know when you come out of this passage?
So reading the passage is that there are articles, research out there that says we need to change what we're eating and change the way we're farming and producing the food that we eat, or else we're in for trouble.
Yeah. Now, the author never really brought up their point, correct? Like they never said exactly what they believe.
Yeah.
But we can assume at this point that the author believes this too. Why else would they say it? Why would they bring this stuff up? So at the end of this passage, it doesn't really matter what the author's perspective is. What matters is, what did the author say? What was the author trying to say? The author was trying to say what you just said, right? Yeah. That we must change the way we eat to avoid environmental disaster or changes or collapse.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's not on the MCAT is the next paragraph starts, "This is all fake news."
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other take homes for this one?
No, simple read, but be prepared for harder questions. When it's easier to read, questions are harder. You got to really make sure you understand where the author's headed with all this stuff and who said what. So I love how you brought that stuff up.
All right, so there you have it. A great article about our impact on the environment and what we should potentially be doing. But again, it's not really about the article. It's about our knowledge, our breakdown of the article, about the passages, the sentences, and the paragraphs, and trying to figure out what the author is telling us. You can follow along each week. We have the articles available in the show notes, the specific blog post for this podcast. Or if you're listening on or in a podcast app, you can just swipe over to the right or left from the podcast artwork, or tap on the artwork usually, and you can see the link to the article there. I hope you have a great week. If you have any suggestions for this podcast, I would love to hear them. If you would love to give us some feedback, you can do that in iTunes or wherever you are listening. Hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time here on the MCAT CARS podcast.